In this video, we will be looking at the history of our part files within SOLIDWORKS PDM. We're going to learn the difference between versions and revisions while seeing how we can retrieve an older version of our file to either roll back or to compare the differences. So the first thing that we need to understand is, what is the difference between a version and a revision? So a version of your file is created every time the file is checked back into the vault. The vault takes a snapshot of the file, creating a new version. We see that there is a local version based on what you have downloaded to your local cache, and a latest version, which is the most recent version found in your vault. So based on which version we decide to approve, we can send it through our workflow to ultimately release the file, assigning it a revision. So let's take a look at an example part and see how we can make a few design changes to create different versions of the part. We can then choose a version to then release and assign a revision to that file. Here we will take a look at this sprocket file. We want to make this lighter, so we'll make a few design changes. To do so, I'll go ahead and open up this file. And if I want to make changes to this file, I have to ensure that I check it out. I can see that it is checked in using my SOLIDWORKS PDM add-in inside of SOLIDWORKS. And if I go ahead and check this file out, I can then go ahead and make changes to this file. So we can see here that we are currently at local version 1 of 1. As I make a design change here, we'll go ahead and unsuppress these round holes. I can then go ahead and check this back into the vault, ultimately taking that snapshot that I was talking about earlier. So I'll check this file into the vault, but I'm going to ensure that I check this box here that says keep checked out. The reason I'm checking this box is because I want to check it in to take that snapshot of version 2, but I'm not done making design changes just yet. I want to make a third version as well. So keeping this checked out will take the snapshot inside of my vault, but it will also keep it checked out, allowing me to create changes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check this in, but I want you to notice that I haven't left a comment here, and we're going to see how that takes effect a little later. So I'll check this file in while keeping it checked out. Once I check it in, I can see that we are now at local version 2 of 2, and it is still checked out, allowing me to continue to make changes. So we'll go ahead and we'll create our third version. So I will suppress our first design changes and unsuppress our next design changes to create these slots. So I'll go ahead and check this file in, ultimately creating local version 3 of 3. This time I'm going to check it in for good. I'm done making design changes, so I'll leave keep checked out unchecked. This time I am going to leave a comment. The comment I'm going to leave is a description on some design changes that were made during this version. So I'll say slots. And we can go ahead and check this in. I can now see that I'm at version 3 of 3. Although I only have 3 versions here, you can see that there is no revision applied just yet. The reason we don't have a revision applied is because we haven't approved through our workflow which version we want to use. So now that we have our 3 versions, let's compare the difference in weight between these 3 versions inside of our assembly here. So we'll go ahead and open up our assembly document. I can see it's updating and pulling my most recent version into this assembly. Looking at my 10,094 part here, which is my sprocket, I can see that we're at local version 3 of 3. I have an annotation here that I can unhide, representing the weight of this part file here. And I can utilize this annotation here to compare the differences between each version. So using this Get Version tab here, I can see when it was created, my second version, and my third version. So notice that on my second version, I didn't leave a comment. This is giving me minimal information about what this version really is. So we can see for version 3, I left that slots comment, which created the description of the version. So it's best practice to leave these comments so that we know which version is which. So I can use this Get Versions tab to go back to version 1, which I can see weighs 0.85 pounds. I can then select this file again and go to version 2. When I go to version 2, we get this message here that's telling me that I've been editing version 1 and the latest version of the file is version 3. So if I wanted to save any of the changes that I've made to version 1, I could save open file as a copy. Or if I didn't make any changes to version 1, I can just use version 2 from the vault, ultimately overwriting any changes that I've made to version 1 without saving. So I haven't made any changes, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull that version 2 from the vault. I can see version 2 are these round holes weighing 0.65 pounds. And if I either choose from Get Version here, I can choose version 3, or I also have the option to get the latest version. So if I choose Get Latest Version, it will get the most up-to-date version for me, which is version 3, and I can see that that weighs 0.57 pounds. After analyzing the difference between these three versions, we've decided to move forward with version 3 since it weighs the least. So let's go ahead and update our drawing as well. I'll close out of my assembly file here. So after a quick rebuild, I can see that it is updated inside of my drawing file. I see my latest version 3 of 3. And directly inside of PDM, what I'm going to do is check this drawing back in, ensuring that my top level files are all checked back in for this assembly. I can go ahead and check this in, leaving a comment saying that we changed the sprocket. And I'll go ahead and check these files in. Once the file is checked in, I'm going to go ahead and push this through my workflow. So I can see here, I can change the state of my file. I can see that my workflow state is currently under editing. And I can either submit this for approval, or if you have the permissions, we can skip that step and go straight to approved. So for example purposes, we're going to go straight to approved so that we can see the revision that's being assigned. So I'll go ahead and choose no approval required. This will push my drawing as well as my assembly and all referenced components to the approved state. I'll go ahead and leave a comment letting everybody know that the sprocket has been changed. And when I go ahead and change the state here, I can see that our local revision has now gone to A. So when our file reaches the approved state, the workflow is set up to assign that file a new revision, which we can see on our data card here has now received revision A. Moving over to the local view, when I select my drawing here, we can see on the data card it has now received revision A, and I even have the opportunity to look at this file's complete history. So by using the File History button up here at the top, I can see I get a detailed list of each step that it has taken, when it was created, when it was transitioned through our workflow, all the way up to when it received revision A. So we can see our versions here. We started with version 1, we then created version 2 and checked it back in, we then created version 3 and checked it back in, and ultimately version 3 received our revision A. I have another example here of a file with a little bit more version history. So let's look at this light drawing here. I can see it's already at revision L with 15 versions. I'll again use that File History button here, and we can see the entire file's history all the way back to when it was created. I can see what version it was at, who created this action where it was either created or running through the workflow. I can see comments as well that were left, as well as on which date, time, all of the information that we need. Moving back to our previous example that we were working on, our sprocket component here, if I ever needed to go back to any of these versions, maybe version 3 wasn't what I wanted and we liked it better when it was at version 1, or maybe I pushed it through the workflow when I didn't mean to. It received revision A and maybe we weren't quite there yet. I can choose one of these older versions here. Maybe I'll choose version 1 when it was under editing. And when I select this version here, you'll notice that I have the option to roll back to this selected version. So let's go ahead and choose roll back. And when I do so, it's going to ask me, do I want to just roll back the drawing or the drawing and all of its referenced components? I'm going to choose all of its references and press continue. When I do so, I can see that it's going to roll back the drawing file, the assembly, and all of the referenced components as well. So I'll leave a comment here saying going back to version 1. And we'll go ahead and press continue. It's going to ensure that I know which files that I'm rolling back. Again, all of the history between version 1 that I'm rolling back to and now, when I roll back, all of that information is going to get deleted. So this is a permanent action. You'll see that when I press continue, it's going to let me know here that all of that file's history that I'm rolling back to, it's going to delete everything, and that's permanent. So we have to understand that this action cannot be reversed, and I'll go ahead and press roll back. When it rolls back these files, I now see my file history is telling me it was created, it went to under editing, and now I see that it was rolled back and versions 2 and 3 were removed. I can see that comment that I left right here, and it was done by the admin user. So now when I go ahead and close this out, I can see that that revision variable A has gone away, and it's no longer in the approved state. I can now see that it has gone back to under editing. So if you ever need to roll back to a file, we can use that version history to go back to any point in time that you want to return to. In this video, we were able to see how we can create new versions of files by checking them out and checking them back in. Once we've decided which version to move forward with, we pass that file through our approval process for it to receive a new revision. The File History tab gave us a detailed description of each action that has occurred on each file, who it was completed by, and at what time it was completed. SOLIDWORKS PDM keeps track of your file's history and makes it easy to go back and retrieve any previous information or just get a detailed look at what has happened to your file throughout its lifecycle. For more videos like this, please check out our YouTube channel.